Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to be analysing the nutrition practice and methodologies of the late Mike Mentzer, who was probably the godfather of high intensity training. He created a methodology known as heavy duty. So let's see what he's got to say about dietary intakes for bodybuilders. I think we know where this is going to go already, don't we, guys?
When a person grows stronger week to week, it is proof that there is a positive change taking place inside of his muscles. Since muscles, by definition, lift weights, a muscle growing stronger can't be exactly the same muscle. If it were exactly the same muscle, it would be limited to lifting exactly the same weight. The main point here is that as a muscle grows progressively stronger over a period of time, it is changing somehow. I'm not specifying what that change is now. I will. For now, just remember, if a muscle is growing stronger, it is in a process of positive change. If during this period of change, the bodybuilder continues to consume nutritionally a maintenance level of calories, by definition...
There's the first problem, maintenance level of calories. What do we know about calories, guys? Measurement of heat. Not the food energy contained that we deal with in our human biological system. Next.
Definition here, he will only maintain his existing physical mass. He won't lose, he won't gain, he'll maintain.
Interesting. It's almost like he's looking at the mass balance model, but then summarizing it as calorie intake. So I think he is into something here. He obviously respects the fact that we need to eat less or eat more to achieve a certain outcome with our physique. So he's part of the way there, which is good.
It goes to the laws of physics or thermodynamics.
Yeah, thermodynamics, that kind of statement doesn't pertain to what our bodies do in response to an influx of protein, carbohydrates or fats. It's not straightforward as calculating it as calories because they don't represent the food itself energetically after the fact that we have eaten the food and digested it. Lots of processes mean that the intake of energy is different between each substrate. Therefore, calories is not an appropriate measurement.
You can't create something out of nothing. You can't build bigger muscles out of thin air. Certain nutritional and caloric values are absolutely required. What the bodybuilder will be doing by consuming a...
It's funny, you got this guy here behind the laptop, he's hench as hell, and he's got some lettuce leaves and tomatoes. I know this just they added in the video for the sake of it, but this isn't representative of a bodybuilding diet, for sure, definitely not. Unless he's doing some sort of like lettuce and tomato fast, maybe, I don't know.
A maintenance level of calories is in essence something less than desirable.
I'm not a big fan of mindless eating either. Ideally we are eating, not looking at a screen, and actually looking at the food we are eating. Not ideal there. I guess he's probably put off by the fact that he's eating lettuce. Again, I know this is just a clip that they added into the video for the sake of it, but just wanted to point that out here because it's relevant.
To some extent, at least, he'll be frustrating the needs of the growth mechanism. He did train to failure, which is what nature requires one do to trigger the growth mechanism.
Interesting to say it. Yeah, I think training to failure is more appropriate as you become more advanced in resistance training. Is it a requirement to build muscle? No. How do we know that? The average trainee over their amateur career or span of training, when they begin training itself, they're not often training to concentric muscular failure, technical muscular failure, anything like that. They're just throwing the weights up and down for the most part. That's evident in the fact that we go to a gym and we see that. They do still build muscle. Something does still work. So you don't have to train to failure. But I understand the premise of what he's saying. I think there's levels to it, that's all.
Into motion. Also, he is growing stronger. Therefore, the muscle is changing. When the growth mechanism is activated, you might visualize it as a moving conveyor belt of sorts, for lack of a better image, with a number of little men standing on top who are reaching up. They're reaching out to grab the nutritional caloric cement, as I like to call it, that it requires to build the second story, the new mass.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way of putting it. To build upon more layers, you need more protein intake to build more structures. Your appetite would be stimulated to the point that you'd keep eating protein until that nutrient requirement is met, I think. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. It's like a building on a mountain. I can kind of see that analogy, yeah.
But remember, consuming a maintenance level frustrates those little men. They are reaching up, but nothing is there. The body is only receiving enough nutritional and caloric values to maintain the first story, the existing physical mass. In such a case, the muscle change
That's a good point. I understand you do need more resources to build more mass, and you need more to maintain it. I would argue, however, evident in the fact that pro bodybuilders use lots of performance-enhancing drugs. They can build muscle without changing their diet. We know this because of relatively long-term studies on bodybuilders or just recreational athletes that have used testosterone. For example, I believe they used about 600 to 900 milligrams per week. They built muscle in the absence of training, but people that trained obviously built more muscle. So that tells me there's a hormonal element that has to be met. So you can't build muscle, at least not a substantial amount, without the right hormones in your body. So yeah, the food comes into it, but also hormones as well, definitely.
I was referring to earlier, where the bodybuilder is growing stronger, will remain primarily a qualitative strength change. It won't manifest much, if at all, as a quantitative muscle change, i.e.
Don't use these wrist straps, guys, unless you're a powerlifter. If you want to build muscle, you don't need these things at all. I think the real implication that you might use these things is if, one, you're a powerlifter trying to lift as much as possible. It'll improve your stretch reflex on the Golgi tendon when you're actually lifting the weight, so therefore you'll be able to lift more weight. It'll keep your joints warmer, but long term it will cause more deterioration to your joints. You're effectively compressing the joint to the point that it will no longer be able to move and glide over itself and the opposing joint, complex safely and easily. So I know this is about nutrition, but honestly, guys, don't waste your time. I spent hours writing about this before in the past. I think I did that in sixth form. So I was about 16, 17 years old, and I got an A star. So you're not bad.
Muscle mass, body weight increase. In order to avoid this, the frustrating of the growth mechanism, and to do the opposite, to serve the needs of the growth mechanism, one must consume a number of nutrients and calories above his daily maintenance level. He must go into a positive calorie balance.
It's funny he says that because I got leaner and more muscular when I first started training. And if I'm honest, I was actually probably eating less calories per day than I was prior to training. That tells me there's definitely a hormonal element here. Definitely. I'm certain of it. I'm absolutely certain. Anyway, I'll stop rambling.
This can be done in a methodical, intelligent fashion, such that growth production needs are precisely met, with little or no excess to cause any appreciable fat deposition. Prior to my emphasizing the caloric dimension of nutrition in my clients, most would grow stronger, but many didn't gain the mass and body weight they desired. Since reducing the volume and frequency of their training, as well as emphasizing the need for a positive calorie balance, my clients' mass and body weight increases are finally keeping pace with their strength gains.
I must admit, based on anecdotal experience from what my friend Jerome Armstrong says, people in these groups typically are counting calories. They're trying to be very lean all the time. they're eating a low food amount, so a lower calorie amount by their standards, and a lot of them don't look that good. So I think Mike's onto something here, which is surprising that people in these groups are not taking much notice of. You need enough food. You can't be in a state of under eating all the time, expect to build loads of muscle. It's not going to work.
And in the majority of cases, little or none of the weight gain is fat. For those who are acceptably lean, as well as those who may be concerned they have a bit too much fat presently, I'd suggest...
This guy here must work out his triceps. It's pertinent. Yeah, he might also sort out his gynecomastia as well. Might help his physique out. But yeah, he looks very ripped. Very ripped. But if he wants to get bigger, he's not going to do that being that lean, I tell you.
You embark on the suggested routine while in a positive calorie balance of 300 to 500 a day. For that second group, who may have a little more fat than they'd like, I propose that you place your fat loss concerns on hold for 2 or 3 months, put on 10 to 20 pounds of muscle, then go on a fat loss.
If I just haphazardly says, put on 10 to 20 pounds of muscle in 3 months. Oh my God. Even in the studies where they used testosterone, I don't think they even managed to do that. I think they managed to get 12 pounds with loads of hormones pumping through their system. So that's incredible. Yeah, a bit of misinformation there. Not realistic for anyone, really.
Diet, at the end of which you'll not only be leaner, you'll have the extra muscle too. The goal, remember, listener, is to serve the nutritional caloric needs of the growth mechanism to gain muscle mass and increase body weight while adding little or no body fat.
I think that can be achieved for most people in the vast majority of cases. The first, I'd say, up to 3-4 years of training, you can build most of the muscle mass that you'll ever achieve in your bodybuilding career, at least drug-free, in terms of hitting your natural genetic limitations and potential. Beyond that, I see every single pro bodybuilder, without any exceptions at all. I've never heard of this being not the case. They've all had to increase their body weight exponentially and disproportionately to the amount of muscle mass they've tried to achieve. So, for example, a 250-pound bodybuilder will have to increase their body weight by maybe 30 pounds to 280 pounds before they can next step on stage at, say, 255, 260. You do have to gain some body fat. When you get to that level of training intensity, you can't remain lean all the time. You don't have the energy to train. You don't have the recovery capacity to train that hard. There are people that do it. Yeah. I mean, Mike Ahern, he can train very hard, but he's not trying to get better at this point. He's a natural athlete. So he's not trying to build more muscle. So he's at a maintenance phase, basically. But the person trying to build more muscle beyond what would be considered, say, beyond a fat-free mass index of, say, 25, maybe 26, that will require the person to eat a lot more food. So bear that in mind.
To do so in a methodical fashion, start by keeping a 5-day food diary.
Even better, do 7 days, because most people cheat in the weekends.
Write down everything you eat for 5 days, and don't become self-conscious during that period and alter what you have typically been eating. What is needed is a representative sampling, so it may be ascertained what your daily average calorie intake is. Write down everything you eat for 5 days and the quantity. Be as accurate with the quantity as possible, but don't fret if you think you're off a little.
Yeah, I think most people can achieve this when they're doing food diaries. We're looking at perhaps 90% accuracy. People typically underestimate what they eat by, I think it's 40% or something like that. So, yeah, I think being accurate, be honest, does help the coach. In a lot of people's cases, it's me that's coaching them, especially if you're watching this channel. Be accurate. I won't judge you for eating the wrong food, but I will judge you if you lie to me. So be very precise. And then I can therefore make a plan that's suitable for you from that point. So yeah, good advice there.
At the conclusion of each of the 5 days, sit down with a good calorie counting book. If you don't have one, buy one.
No, don't do that. Just eat whole foods, like animal foods that have reference values of protein and fat within them, and calculate that. You don't need a book on calories, but save money, guys. I would actually suggest using that money to invest in a affordable consultation with myself, or even buy, I don't know, a bodybuilding ebook like Exercise Specifics 101 that Jerome Armstrong and myself wrote recently. The link will be below in the description.
As every conscientious bodybuilder should have one, since the caloric dimension of nutrition is vitally important, and tally the total calories for the day. At the end of the 5th day, take the 5 daily totals, add them for a grand total, divide by 5, and you'll have, of course, your daily average caloric intake. You must also weigh yourself at the beginning of day 1 and on the morning of day 6. If you didn't gain or lose during that 5-day period, your daily average is also your daily maintenance level of calories.
I always take that step further for myself. If, for example, I had, for whatever reason, a hiatus from training, I was trying to get my diet back on track and training back on schedule, I'd be looking at a course of a week, what my body weight was like day to day to day to day, because things such as hydration will impact that, and things like the carbohydrate intake, if I wasn't eating any of those at all, the fat and protein, sleep quality, all those things will come into it. So I'll be thinking, okay, between those 5, 6, 7 days, my weights were these 7 numbers. I'd then divide that by a certain amount. I'd work it out that way. So I'd actually find out a trend line, I think is probably the best way to put it. I'd see, am I going upwards or downwards, generally speaking? I think you can extrapolate from that quite well.
Let's assume, hypothetically, that your daily maintenance level of calories turns out to be 2,100. Upon starting the suggested routine, make a conscientious, disciplined daily effort to keep your calories 300 to 500 above the maintenance level. If you don't, you'll maintain, you won't gain. But I'm not suggesting that all of a sudden you should start shoveling down indiscriminately large amounts of food. You'll only get fat.
Yeah, what he's saying here is increase your food volume by, like, I don't know, 10 to 15%, something like that, maybe 10 to 20%. I'd always err on the side of changing macronutrients less. The only reason why I'd change them any faster would be because the person is very light or very heavy. In cases where they need to gain weight to be healthy, you know. So people on the other end, the other end of the extreme will be pushed harder in terms of their dietary deficit or surplus, so to speak.
I have observed with my phone clients that some, not many, do not have a set maintenance calorie level, but a maintenance calorie range. If after 2 weeks into the training program, with a positive calorie balance as suggested, you haven't gained a couple of pounds, you might be just such an individual, so increase your calories another 300. And the calorie increase should conform roughly with the 60-25-15 ratio.
I must admit, I like the look of this grill. It looks quite good, but the stuff around it and the writing on the screen, I do not agree with at all. Can you believe that? So I might do some calculations in my head. So if you're looking at 2,100 calories, and say you're doing 25% protein, that would be God maths. Something like 251 grams of protein, I think. Or is it less than that? I don't know. Maybe even less than that. Anyway, whatever it happens to be, the fat will be low. We know that much. We're not meant to survive on a diet 15% fat. That's ridiculous. We won't get enough cholesterol, enough vitamin A, D, and K. We'd probably have high blood glucose levels as well because of the high carbohydrate amount. Lots of anti-nutrients, like outlined here. So we've got on the top left, we've got, I think, some like cucumber or something. Not the worst thing, but the skin should be peeled to get rid of the fiber. Lots of toxins in the tomatoes. They do cause a lot of people issues, and they do make people sick and acidic in the gut, me included. It looks like they've got some like chia seeds or something at the top right, mushrooms. Mushrooms are not the worst thing to eat. Depends who you are. Chia seeds, they swell up in your gut and don't do anything at all. They just provide you with nothing. A net intake of nothing, but an absolute negative in terms of your health outcomes. Garlic and onions, they are an antibiotic and viral bacterial to some extent. So they do kind of work for that, but not so you want to be putting in your gut very often. They're more of a medicine than anything. We've got some meat here. It looks like it could be lamb, maybe. That's quite nice. And bread, lots of gluten in the bottom left, so not ideal either. Peppers, virtually useless. They don't really do much of anything. They give you some potassium, I guess, maybe a small amount, but sort of that. Net negative overall. Anyway, continue.
With perhaps a bit greater emphasis on protein. Those who do as indicated and conscientiously keep watch of their calories so that they're in a positive balance of 300 to 500 a day will be quite delighted.
I don't think there's actually any fat in this other than the cheddar on the bottom left. Incredible. Yeah, it's funny because this gentleman, he gets things so correct and he's so scientific and well explained when it comes to training, like the minimal effective dose, things like that. But when it comes to nutrition, he's completely out of his fucking mind. Way off. What do we need to gain muscle? What are muscle structures and things like that? What's essential to the body to build muscle? Protein and fat. Are carbohydrates essential? No. Do they expedite results anymore? No. How do you know that? Because me. I don't eat carbohydrates for the most part. I drink about half a litre of milk most days and get some carbohydrates through eggs, but I don't have 65% or 65% of my intake being carbohydrates. I'm an advanced bodybuilder, guys. You can trust me. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been tracking my nutrient intake for probably close to a decade now. I know what I am and am not eating. I can say with certainty, the last 3.5 years nearly that I've been doing a carnivore diet, I built the most amount of muscle mass in the absence of carbohydrates through plant sources. We don't need all this stuff. It doesn't amplify anabolic signaling. It doesn't do anything. And the thing is, I know people say, oh, but it might. Yeah, you're all addicted to carbohydrates, so forget about it. You'll find any way to justify your cause. We need science to prove my case. I go back to the fact that what do we need? Protein and fat. Is our body made of carbohydrate? No, we've got maybe, so myself, my body, as I'm right now, maybe 800, maybe 900 grams of glycogen, so glucose, like stored glucose in my body right now. How much of that is needed in excess to build upon that? None. Gluconeogenesis, fatty acids. I can build up my muscle glycogen as when I want throughout the whole day, as needed and anticipated by my body. I don't need extra. Extra is contraindicated to human health outcomes.
In addition to growing stronger every workout, he'll gain 7, 8, 9, 10, or more pounds the first month. I can't say with any certainty just how much you might gain due to genetic variations. As mentioned previously, there are slightly more than 600 calories in a pound of muscle. If you are stimulating 3 pounds of muscle growth a week, you will require roughly...
Guys, that's what happens when you put certain substances in your triceps. If you go scroll back at this video, you'll see something there very obvious, very lumpy in his arms.
600 times 3, or 1,800 calories per week above maintenance. This translates to 257 calories a day above maintenance. I am recommending slightly higher so there's less chance of any slightest frustrating of the nutritional caloric needs of the growth mechanism.
It's funny he talks about any chance, so therefore you have to eat more just to make sure. But he also says you're trying to not gain any extra fat. Which one is it? Decide one. Are you erring on the side of caution to not gain fat? Are you erring on the side of caution to make sure you gain more muscle? Which one is it?
Let's assume, in your particular case, that your growth requirements don't necessitate a full 300 calories a day above maintenance. Then yes, the excess will turn to fat. However, there are 3,500 calories in a pound of fat. If you required only one...
No. There's something like 4,086 calories, if you're to measure it that way, in a pound of fat. There are around 3,500 calories in a pound of body fat. People always get this wrong. They use the wrong terminology. You have to be accurate with this sort of thing. It's not good enough just to say that and think, oh, it's fine. You know, people will make it up and they'll be fine. They'll guess it. No, you have to be accurate, at least as best as you can.
150 calories a day above maintenance. The other 150 would turn to fat.
That guy maintained his abs quite well, considering how much bigger his waist got. Do you notice that?
but you would only gain 1 pound of fat a month. When a bodybuilder is actually gaining muscle mass as well as getting stronger, he should see a reciprocally reinforcing relationship between the two.
I didn't like that deadlift, by the way, guys. You can see he actually activated his biceps to pull the bar off the ground. The actual biceps went forward. His elbows went forward to lift the weight. So it tells me he's... I know it's a clip. Honestly, it's frustrating.
In other words, his muscle mass increases will facilitate even...
He used to work calves as well. Look at that. Look at that. Wow.
greater strength increases, which in turn facilitate greater growth stimulation. And the rate of your strength increase will serve as a relative indice of how much growth is being stimulated.
Yeah, it's true. It's a good indice to use as a performance metric, week by week, or maybe month by month even. Ultimately, we are, as bodybuilders, looking at ourselves in the mirror and depicting if we have or have not gained muscle mass. I think the best way to go about it, probably, if you've got the money, the capacity to do so, is the whole body, DEXA, bod scans, all that sort of thing. You'll see if we're getting bigger or not.
If you are only increasing a rep or so here and there, obviously there is less growth stimulation than if you're increasing in strength by leaps and bounds. If at some point you believe you may need more than a 300 to 500 positive calorie balance, go higher, but be cautious and methodic.
Looks here like he's got a Snickers bar and an apple. He's well chuffed with himself, isn't he? Oh, God. Yeah, it's just peculiar. A heavy duty college that made this video. He or she has got 41,000 subscribers. He's putting up clips like this. This is people eating junk food.
Go up a couple of hundred calories at a time and keep tabs on your body weight. If at some point you start gaining very rapidly, check to make sure it's muscle, and if not, simply cut back. Gaining fat is anathema for the bodybuilder, certainly never to one's advantage. A right-thinking bodybuilder should desire to gain only muscle, as his goal is not to be only muscularly massive, but also defined in appearance.
Physique.
It is not necessary, as I was led to believe 30 years ago, that one must bulk up, that is, gain fat with muscle, to build muscle, which was a very common belief. The more fat one puts on,
this is Posing Masterclass 101 by the guy with the white headband.
The longer and harder he'll have to diet to get it off. And I can tell you from personal experience, it's not fun. As a bodybuilder continues to gain muscle mass and body weight, his maintenance level of calories gradually goes up until finally weight gains slow down, then come to a halt.
This is one of the biggest problems with bodybuilding. It's trying to be so analytical, so calculating, so robotic. I noticed this loads of times on my channel. But you can't outsmart your body. If you eat the right foods, all of this goes out the window. It becomes a lot less complicated. I really don't see the value in this sort of video. The reason being is, one, the whole calories thing, which is useless. Two, the idea that he's so calculative about different things. And three, the biggest thing for me is, why is someone that's so intelligent, so philosophical and scientifically minded so far off when it comes to nutrition? Percentages, macros, ratios, calories. Honestly, he could do a lot better. It's a shame that he's deceased now, because I'd love to see some kind of debate or roundtable discussion with people like Mike Mentzer, Professor Bart Kay, Dr. Scott Stevenson. Heck, who else is there? Like some of the IPB Pro gurus, coaches. It'd be interesting to just put more in one room for like a day and just see what happens, see what they come up with, because chances are there is a truth to all this. There is a underlying way or best method to eat. I'm sure there is. There's got to be. If they put all the information together, I'm sure there is. Anyway, that was quite a brutal one to watch. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed that video. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Thank you.